All right, so we're gonna talk about some key positions just as a baseline going into our toes to bar. We're gonna start with a hollow body hold, so laying on our back. We wanna make sure the low back is pressed down through the floor, belly button is pulled into the spine, always protecting that spine as much as possible. This is gonna be a key position when we get up to the bar. So laying back, low back flat, belly button is down, legs as straight as we can get them, arms are gonna extend up overhead. Again, pulling the belly button down towards the spine. If that feels aggressive and the low back comes up, we bend the knees slightly and hold the hands down. Now, for the sake of learning the skill, we really want to try to practice straight legs, toes pointed, arms back behind the head. Okay, that full C position. To do the opposite, we then flip onto our stomach and we do an arch hold. So belly button to the floor. I'm gonna lift my arms up off the floor as I press my hips down into the floor. Feet are gonna come up off the floor as well. So facing down. That's our arch hold. So we've gone through our hollow hold, we've gone through our arch hold, key positions going up to the bar for the toes to bar. Another thing we want to talk about is the pike stretch. So legs straight up in front, keeping the quads as tight as possible to make sure that we have a full extension through the leg. Back stays nice and flat. I'm reaching forward to my toes, making sure I feel a lengthening in my hamstrings. So this is just gonna open up those hammies to make sure when I am hanging on the bar, I'm able to bring my toes up to meet my hands. So a big thing here is mobility. If I'm only able to touch my knees in a pike stretch, it's going to be very, very difficult to get my toes all the way up to my hands when doing a toe to bar if I'm not able to touch my hands to my toes in the stretch position. Okay, so we want to spend some time developing the length through the hamstrings, making sure they're nice and stretched out before we then go to the bar. From there, we want to activate through the lats. Okay, so our pulling sequence, make sure those lats are firing before we go up to it. Okay, so let's talk about lat activation. We want to make sure those guys are firing before we're even hanging onto the bar. So I have my red band. You just need a very small band. You don't need anything too thick. We're going to stretch the arms straight out front, lock those elbows out. Turn the palms down so they're facing the floor. I'm going to pull my shoulders down away from my ears as much as possible. Belly button's pulled into the spine, nice tight midline, and then pulling those hands down in towards our pockets. Nice and controlled on the way up. Down into the pockets, nice and controlled. I would go 20 reps just to get those guys firing. You'll see my shoulders never raise. They stay down, pin them, and then pull right down into those pockets. Okay, lats are going to be fired up. So we're ready to now go to the bar and start our hanging movements for the toes bar. Okay, so now we're going to talk about building strength before we go ahead and build momentum on the skill. So we should always have a baseline of strength before entering into a big gymnastic skill and expecting to have that skill right off the bat. Okay, for safety reasons and for protecting that shoulder girdle, you want to make sure that you've established that strength. So first thing we're going to talk about is passive into an active hang. First thing, hand position. Make sure the palms are pronated so they're facing away from you. With your thumbs around the bar, this is going to protect the shoulder, puts it in a safer position. So when I hop up, starting in a passive, nice and relaxed, just hanging out. You'll see my legs are straight, my toes are pointed, my hips are slightly back, okay? No bent knees, never a bent knee, never, never. Passive into active, I pull my shoulders down and away from my ears. Scap is now active, lats are active, shoulders are active, midline is active, back down into that passive hang, into the active hang, back to passive. Okay, so those are two different positions, passive, active, firing through the lats, firing through the shoulders. From there, we go into a scap pull-up, which essentially is the exact same thing. Now I'm adding a tempo to the movement. Why am I adding a tempo to the movement? I'm adding that to build time under tension, to create more tension through the body throughout the whole movement. So I'm going to give you a 2-2-2-2 tempo. That indicates up for 2, hold for 2 at the top, down for 2 to the bottom, and then stay active, not passive, in the bottom for 2 seconds. I'm going to show you 3 reps, up for 2, hold for 2, down for 2, pause for 2. Pronated grip, thumbs around the bar. In a good hollow body position to start, up for 2, hold for 2, down for 2, pause for 2. That's 1, 2. Let's go one more. Down for 2. And pausing for 2 in the bottom. Okay? We want to do a lot of volume in that to build the strength before we get into any sort of kipping. Lat pullback. From here, we're just increasing that lever. So I'm pulling my shoulders away from the bar, moving in a backwards direction, closing that lever as much as possible. Hand position stays the exact same. Midline stays the exact same. Legs stay straight, and those toes are going to stay pointed out in front. We want to be as gymnastic as possible. So thumbs around. In my hollow, I go from passive to active. Now I'm going to pull the bar in front of me as my shoulders move back away from the bar. Controlled on the descent, keeping those shoulders safe. And passive down to the bottom. You can do that with or without a box. I'm now going to show with a box. So we take the box here, place it slightly in front of the bar, and hop back up. As I pull back through the shoulders and through the lats, I'm going to drag my toes up the front of the bar, in front of the box, to keep my midline nice and tight, belly button pulls in, and keep that hollow body position. Now everything is working together to hold that position. Passive, active, pulling into that lever, dragging my toes up the box. I really feel the midline active here. Active, lever, pulling the toes up and through. One more. Passive, active, pulling the bar in front, nice and controlled on the way down. Midline is super, super active here as the lats are active. One more part to our strength we're going to talk about, strict knee raise. So this is getting into our progression towards that toe to bar. Strict knee raise, I start in my active hang, bring my knees only up to 90, and then back down. 90, back down. Thumbs around. Start in a dead hang, no swinging. Active through the shoulders. Knees to 90. Back down to hollow. This would be an arch. We don't want that. Back to our hollow. Knees to 90. Back down to hollow. I stay active through the shoulders, through the lats, through the scap the whole time. Never back to passive. From here, I'm going to go knees to elbows. So we're increasing that movement from our hollow. Knees come all the way up to the elbows. So we're closing the hips as the knees come back up. Thumbs around the bar. Passive. Active. Knees to 90, past 90. I do my lever and pull those knees up. Passive. Active. Knees to 90, lever. Knees go up to those elbows. Okay, from there, we make it even more difficult. We're gonna keep the legs straight. This is gonna recruit more of the hip flexor. So leg raise just to 90 degrees. Okay, so thumbs around, arms locked out. Passive, active, legs to 90. Back down to our hollow, not our arch, our hollow. Passive, active, 290, and back down. Nice. And smooth on the way up, smooth on the way down. If we lose control at any point, we need to take a step back. We need to rest, we need to recover, and then hit it again. Last one, pike raise. So just past that 90 degree, we're gonna go up a little bit higher, as high as you can possibly go, keeping those legs nice and straight. I do need to see that toe point. Okay, toe point is essential. Keeps that calf active, helps keep the quad active as well. Thumbs around, hollow, passive hang, active hang, past 90, and back down. Passive, active, past 90, and back down. Good. So now that we've gone through our strength progressions, building our strength in order to then build on the momentum, I want to talk about building a little bit more strength within the compression portion of the movement. So this is going to be the smallest angle of the movement and then holding that angle for as long as possible. So that's either a tuck hold, bringing the knees as close to the chest as possible, or a tight hold with those legs straight, holding in half and position for as long as possible. This can be really, really tricky to build over time. We're really gonna focus on quad strength, hip flexor strength, so deepen that hip, and then through our midline. So first progression I'll show you guys is a leg extension over the band. You wanna have a band set up so that it is about knee height on the rig. Facing the band, shoulders, hips, and heels in good vertical alignment. Tracing that bottom foot up to the knee. Then extending the foot up and over that band. Okay, the goal is to keep that bottom leg nice and straight. No bending through the bottom leg, no arching through the low back. Shoulders, hips, heels, nice and straight, quads stay tight, midline stays active there. From there, we're gonna build on that movement. Once we have that full extension through the leg, we're then going to ballet raise at the top, so compressing through the hip as much as we can. Holding, and now raising. Okay, do it on the opposite side. Make sure you're doing equal on both sides so we're not super strong on one side. That bottom leg stays nice and straight. You're really going to feel glute activation here. If your glute is not active, you are likely bending in that bottom leg. So we want to take a step back and make sure we're not bringing that leg as high. Okay, quads stay nice and tight as we do that. From there, we have a seated heel raise on the floor. We're going to do that on the floor, arms locked out. Shoulders are going to sit in front of our hips here. Seated, legs straight out in front, legs stay super straight. Walk those hands so that they're in line with the knees. On your fingertips, chest stays tall, no one any punching. Nice and tall here. I lift my heels right off the floor. You're gonna feel quads, midline, hip flexors as we're compressing through that position here. Okay. From there, to up the ante, we wanna make it a little bit harder. We take a kettlebell, sit it out in front. Now I'm going to be moving my heels up and over the kettlebell. You're going to see I'm not rocking forward back to get those heels up and over. Chest stays nice and tall. Lifting through quads, hip flexors, and midline to get it up and over. Okay. From there, we're moving to the parallettes. This is going to get tricky as we move to the parallettes. Arms are going to stay locked out. We're pushing down and through the parallettes as much as possible. We're going to start in a tuck position. So knees in towards our chest, getting those knees as close as possible, and then rotating through the hips. And we want to hold. Okay, establish how long you can hold that in the beginning, reduce some time, and then repeat that number of sets over time. Okay, we want repeatability to then increase our time, repeatability, increase your time as you go, okay? From there, if the tuck is too easy, then we go into pike. This is where it gets tricky. Arms locked out, pushing those parallettes away, legs nice and straight. And we're holding. Again, establish how long you can go for an AMRAP set, as long as possible. From there, we take that number, we reduce some time from it, and then hit multiple sets for repeatability. Then we increase that time slightly, multiple sets for me. Okay, so now we've talked about the key positions, the hollow and the arch. We've talked about increasing our strength before we then move on to momentum or gymnastics base hipping. We've talked about compression strength through the quads, the hip flexors, and through the midline. Now we're going to move on to combining the compression strength with the lat and shoulder activation that we've already done in the beginning to warm up to this point. So we're going to go into a floor pike over to rig. So now I'm holding onto the rig, my lats are active, and I'm bringing my toes all the way up and over to make contact with the rig, compressing through the hips. So arms are nice and straight as we're holding onto the rig, low back is pressed through the floor, legs stay straight as we bring the toes all the way up and over to the rig. Okay, active and active there. Moving on, we're gonna go to this setup here. So I have a 20-inch box set up. I have really short legs, so the 20-inch box works out perfect. I have a women's barbell set up at about armpit height on the rig. Make sure when you're doing this drill you have your bands wrapped around the barbell and the rig to keep the barbell secure so it doesn't go flying off and you don't go flying with it. From here in a pronated grip, thumbs are around the bar. Heels start on the box. Activate through those lats as we're pulling the shoulders back. We're now compressing at the same time. So my body's moving backwards as my toes are moving up towards the bar, decreasing that angle, increasing the lever here. Feet up. Passive, active, lats are on, pull back as toes raise. Reset. Reset. And reset. Okay, so equal parts pulling through the lats, equal parts pulling through the toes up towards that bar. Okay, so the last drill we're going to go into is hanging on the bar. We're going to start in our L-sit position and now bring the toes to the bar, very similar to what we just did on the low bar. Okay, so a lot of us can really get our legs to 90, no problem at all. Once we get to that point, that's where we get stuck. So we need to think lat activation, scap activation, shoulders activation as we pull through that lever behind the bar, as we bring our toes up towards the bar at the same time. So we're decreasing the angle from the toe to the bar. Pronated grip, palms are away, thumbs are around the bar. Passive, active, legs to 90, back to 90, toe to bar, back to 90, toe to bar. Okay, so we're just combining those two movements now onto the bar. We can do the same thing to scale it down slightly. We can do our knee raise to 90 and then bring the knees to the elbows or into the chest. Okay, so same idea, we're just in that tuck position and set up the pick. Knees to 90, passive, active, pulling the knees in towards the chest. You can see on both those examples, the shoulders move back away from the rig. We're never bringing our butt over and around. We're pulling the body back away as the knees come through. We're decreasing that angle. That's going to be a key point here. So now we're going to move into, let's talk about kipping 101. You're going to notice the placement of kipping in the setup of the teaching. It is later on in the teaching, right? It's not the first thing we work on. We don't just jump into it and swing around and flail around. We build and establish that strength first before then adding the kipping and the gymnastics portion to it, okay? So first movement, we're gonna go from a strict hollow to a strict arch. In the beginning, we talked about the hollow body hold on the floor and the arch hold on the floor. Now we're moving that from a horizontal position into a vertical hang. The movement is the exact same. It's strict, it's slow, it's controlled. We're figuring out our movement in relation to space here. Thumbs are around the bar, pronated grip. Hollow, belly button is in, toes in front, shoulders are active. Arch, we pull the head through, pull the bar back, and toes reach behind. Back to our hollow, back to the arch. Okay, really important to go slow and controlled there. Feel each and every movement as we go. From there, we're going to build on that into the beat swing. The hips are going to stay in the exact same position. We're opening and closing through the lats, through the shoulders. Scap is still active here. Okay, so isolating just upper body through that hip. Thumbs around, legs straight, toes are pointed, opening, closing through the shoulders. My lats are active. Scap is turned on. It's small, it's super controlled. I can start and stop at any point. It's not an uncontrolled swing. From here, I'm going to move into the kip swing. So now I'm opening, closing through not just the shoulder, but through the hip as well. Okay, so we're going hollow, arch, hollow, arch. The key to the kip, it has to be equal in front of the rig. It has to be equal behind the rig. That arch and that hollow needs to look the exact same on either side. So if I'm coaching and I'm looking right down the rig, equal from left to right. Okay, if it's bigger on the right, it's going to be out of control on the left. Okay, so keep it equal. Pronate grip comes around. Start in that dead hang. Small hollow arch to start. Hollow arch. And stop. You can start, you can stop in control at any point in time. From there, we build on that lever. We can make a small kip. We can go into a medium kip, and we can go into a large kip. Okay, we should be able to go from small to large to medium, from medium to large to small at any point, because we are in control of that movement the entire time. So I'm going to show you small, a medium, and a large. You're going to see the difference in the space that's taken up in the arch and the hollow. Dead hang to start always, small to start, medium, and large. Again, equal in the front, equal in the back. I'm in control, not just flailing around. Okay, so let's talk about our kipping, plus our compression, plus our lat activation. If we have all of those things linked together, we should now be able to do one kipping toe to bar. It'll look like this. To dead stop, okay? One single rep. We jump up to the bar, arch, into the toe to bar, into a dismount. Now, how do I take that one movement and now link multiple toes to bar together? That's the tricky part. So, these are just a couple combinations of movements that you can do to start building that momentum and that motor coordination to then link toe to bar consecutively together. We're gonna go beat swing, kip swing, low, medium, high kip swing into a toe to bar. So now I've taken a bunch of those movements that were just broken down and I'm combining them, so I'm learning the motor recruitment pattern to now get my toes all the way up to the bar at the same time, building on that kip swing. Okay, so it'll look like this. Dead hang, beat swing, kip swing, low, medium, high. And toe to bar. Okay, when you do your toe to bar, make sure we're always returning to that arch position as quickly as possible. What we usually see is the toes come to the bar. People will then wait to bring the toes back. We've lost the cadence of that toe to bar. Okay, so linking them together is very much dependent on the cadence that we're building over time. So I'm going to show you guys one more time. After the toe to bar, watch the dismount into the arch position, and then I'm going to drop down. Into the arch, and then dismount. Once I get into the arch position, I'm now loading that movement to then bring the toes back up into the hollow as I'm pulling away from the rig. We need to make sure we get into that arch equal in the front, equal in the back to then build. Next one we got is kip, kip, toe to bar. Kip, kip, toe to bar. 2 kips, 1 toe to bar. Toe to bar. Okay, so we're slowing that movement down into the arch, emphasis in the arch, before I go back into my second kip, kip, and then back into that toe to bar. Okay, from here, kip, toe to bar, kip, toe to bar. I'm taking away one of those kips, so I'm increasing the volume of the toe to bar, decreasing the volume of the kip. Okay, same cadence. Nice and controlled. I am in control of the movement the whole time. Now, let's hit pause. If at any point our kip and our toe to bar looks like this. Bad news, you need to stop. Stop, take a step back, review what we talked about before, go through all of those steps, and now reassess, okay? From here, we're gonna go straight into our toes to bar. So we're taking out the kips in between. We're active through the lats, through the shoulders, through the stack. I have this strength through the midline, through the quads, through the hip flexors to perform the compression of the movement. I have this strength in the lever. We put it all together. I've built up my cadence through the kipping. controlled as we go. So last part, I'm just going to talk about some key points here. We've talked about them throughout this whole series, but just an extra emphasis on them. Number one, arch and hollow need to be equal in the front and the back. So if I'm watching from the side of the rig, I need to see that arch position equivalent to the hollow position. Okay, that's going to be key. Controlled kip, I'm in control of the motion the whole time. If I lose control, jump off the rig, take a breather, reset, dead hang to start, and now get back into the movement. You are in control the whole time. No waiting in that arch position. If we bring our feet back and we wait too long, I've generated far too much momentum and we've lost control. We've lost the cadence of the movement. So try not to arch and hold. That's not going to help you in order to build a proper kip. It will help you to get the toes to the bar the first time, but then we're done. Okay, so make sure you keep control of the movement the whole time. No double swing. So a lot of times we see one toe to bar. We swing to now generate more momentum, and then we go for the next one. That's out of control movement. Stop, hop off the bar, and then reset. Pulling back behind the bar, your lats are huge. Make sure that we're using those lats as much as possible. They're actively pulling the shoulders away from the bar as the toes are coming up towards the bar. Decrease that angle for your toes to make contact to the bar at the top of the movement. Last but not least, blocking, so that's through the shoulders, staying nice and active through those shoulders, arching and hollowing through the movement. Make sure we don't go passive, okay? We want to stay nice, small movement in that arch and hollow. We don't want to be too far forward, too far back. Nice and small, tight positions. Legs are straight, toes are pointed throughout the whole movement, okay? One more part. Okay, so last but not least, we have talked about how to develop the skill, right? So now that we've acquired the skill, how now do we build on the volume? How now do we increase the range in which we can perform this movement? So this is an OPEX-based approach. So those were just a handful of drills and progressions in order to learn the skill. Once we can link that skill together, this is a systematic process for skill development. So this is a process that all coaches can use to go ahead and build the volume for their members or their clients in that skill development. So the key here is always assess. We need to start with a baseline of how many reps that we can do or where we're starting out. Maybe we don't have that toe to bar yet, but I'm assessing the movement to see our starting point so I can now build a plan or a prescription for that client or that member in my group class to progress them to being more successful here. So that's where the design protocol comes in. Now that I've designed it, they're going to practice that prescription, and then we do a retest. I need that data to see where I'm going next, right? Always assessing and then reassessing. From that retest with my results, I then go ahead and redesign the practice to make sure that they are progressing in the right direction. So there's 5 different variables, 5 different options. So we progress as we go. We start with just the skill. We've acquired the skill. Okay, so now I have the skill, so what do I do next? Under zero fatigue, I'm working on that skill. Okay, that's our first step. We retest after that. We see where we are. Next, we take the skill, we increase the volume of that skill. Now I'm going to retest again, okay? Multiple reps, I'm retesting where I'm at now. So now I take the skill, I decrease my volume, and I add in a metabolic challenge. So this could be I'm hopping on the assault bike, I'm going on the assault bike for a period of time. Now I'm hitting my toes to bar for a smaller amount of volume, and I will retest at that point again. Then I go into my skill. Okay, so I have my toe to bar, I'm increasing the volume, I'm increasing that metabolic challenge, so I'm taking the two and I'm adding them together, and now I'm seeing what we are made of, what can we do at this point. So I'm retesting. Last but not least, we would go into, we have our skill, we have our volume, so we're building our volume, and we're adding in metabolic complexity. Okay, so we're switching up some of those movements. Maybe I'm going assault bike into a heavy power clean into my toes to bar. Okay, so the complexity is now increased and it is metabolic at that point. Now I'm going into my retest again. Okay, so over time, this will not happen within a week. This may happen within months, this may happen within years. That all comes down to A, who the client is, who the member is, who you are as a person, and what your goals are. If we just want to get that skill and perform that skill, then we're going to focus on the progressions as we go. If our goal is to do lots of volume, then maybe we're going to go into no fatigue, then into the volume. If we want to see our total output and what we are able to do metabolically, then we're going to go ahead and change that into 4 and 5 being our focus. But we need to start from the top. That skill requirement is what we are talking about, is what we're working on right now. Getting that skill, linking those toes to bar together, and feeling really confident